There is an interesting mechanic in the Bedrock version of Minecraft related to the item name that appears over your hotbar when you hover over an item. If an item is enchanted, and you select it in your hotbar, the enchantments appear under the item name. There's not much practical use to this, but it is a nice feature regardless. I was recently scrolling through the Fabric Discord and found a user who wanted this mechanic on Fabric. We spoke for a little bit, and I offered to update a Fabric port of a mod on 1.14, which emulated this mechanic already. I was fully confident in my ability to update this mod, but then I saw this single word inside the code repository, and I instantly gave up. There was another feature related to rendering the player on the screen in this mod, and I was not messing with that. I instead opted to make my own version with just the special tooltip effect, and I figured, hey, why don't I just record a video of me making the entire mod? So here we are. When you start to create a mod, you need to ask yourself, what am I even doing, and where do I start to look? Quite frankly, I have zero clue, so I started an investigation in Fabricord. Lead acquired. Let us set up a simple project using mcdev. We'll call this project Helpful Held Tooltips, and we're going to target Minecraft 1.15.2. Aside from setting up a simple description and a project name, we will also set the Loom version of the project to 0.4.5, which is the latest unstable version at this current time. 0.2.7 Snapshot is the most stable version if you have any issues with 0.4.5. So now our IDE has finished loading the project. And the only hint we have to building this is that options.txt has a value called held item tooltips. We can probably assume that that value dictates whether or not a tooltip appears when you click on an item in your hotbar, the little thing above your hotbar. So the first thing I'm going to do, just because I know this exists, is I'm going to search Minecraft for it. Now, if you haven't already attached sources, you will need to do that. So usually what I do is I just go to Minecraft client. Sometimes you'll get a blue bar up here. I might actually be able to replicate it if I just remove sources. Go back to Minecraft client. You can see it's telling us that this is a decompiled class file and that we need to attach sources. So if we click choose sources here after running gen sources, which is a Gradle task under Fabric right here, it'll take a few minutes. You can hit choose sources and then find the jar with the same name as your current jar that ends with -sources. We're going to click on that. It'll bring us to this file, which now has Java docs and better names. One of the other benefits of attaching sources is that you can use the find usages function inside library code, so we can see, where stuff is used within Minecraft. But for this case, what we're going to do is we're going to search the entire project for held item tooltips. You can see I've already got it up here because I was just poking around. So we can see all the cases in Minecraft code or outside Minecraft code, whether it be a data file or a recipe, where held item tooltips exists. So let's just go to the first one, which is in game options. We can see that there's a public boolean held item tooltips, which seems to be initialized to true. And we can see here that it's being pulled. So inside the game hub, in the render function, we're saying if the HUD is not hidden and held item tooltips are enabled and our current game mode is not spectator, then we render the held item tooltip. So I'm going to go over to that method, and I can assume that this is where everything I need takes place. We're going to be hijacking this method to add enchantment tooltips when we hover over things like swords. So it looks like it first tells the profiler that we're now rendering the selected item name. Looks like there's a tooltip fade function, or, well, it's a field, but functionality. So if we're holding a stack, and the stack name hasn't faded out yet, we get the current stack name, and we format it with the rarity of the stack. Which is actually kind of interesting, because I wonder how that works with custom colored item stacks. If it has a custom name, it is forced into italics. We turn the text to a formatted string, and then here it looks like we're getting positioning information. Where do we want to render this information? And then we've got an opacity fade for the tooltip fading mechanism. And then it looks like right here, so K is our opacity, and we're saying if the opacity is over 0, then we're going to do all this stuff, including drawing the string, and it looks like there's some sort of like background color here. And then we stop the profiler. So because I know I'm going to need one, I'm going to create my mixin folder and add a in-game HUD mixin. Now let's see what we want to do. So we need a point in here where we can check for whether or not the item has extra tooltips, or things that we should render. Part of me is thinking that we should just override this method for a few reasons. One, doing an inject does not sound fun, mostly because I'm going to have to move the item name up, which means I would have to do some sort of like modify constant, or probably I'd have to redirect something. Let's see where it looks like this line right here is how it determines the Y position of the string. Don't tell anyone I'm doing this. Let's see if it'll let me... So overwrites are evil. If anyone else injects into this method, my mod will crash with theirs. But quite honestly, that's probably good, because I don't want anyone else messing with the rendered tooltip. Say somebody else implements the exact same feature. I don't want them both appearing. This will just hard crash if anyone tries to do anything with it. And it does make me put a little Java doc on so people know who to blame. I am using mcdev, so I can alt-enter over the mixin class name, which will add it to my mixin config, which is right over here, but it doesn't add it to the client section, so I'm just going to change that myself so it doesn't crash on servers if anyone is... Well, if anyone does that, I hope they don't. So now what I have to do is I just have to shadow all these values. Let me see if it'll let me do that. And it's going to complain. mcdev wants me to put an environment annotation on the class so that it... And with mcdev, I can just start typing the name and it'll autocomplete it for me. So scaled width, font renderer, scaled height, and fill, which is probably a... Is that a static method going somewhere? Where is that going? Drawable helper. I'm just going to call that directly. So now what I can do is, let's say I comment out this line, and I create a new string, banana. Let's run the game. Gonna create a new world here, just a standard creative world. And if we grab an item from the creative inventory, such as dirt, and then we go to that in our hotbar, you can see it says banana instead of dirt, because I just completely nuked the method. So some of you might be familiar with the fact that developers kind of hate Optifine, and this is exactly why everyone hates Optifine, because it does this for all of its performance changes. It just nukes the entire method. So if another person comes by and they try to inject into this, well, it obviously will die, which is the case with Optifine as well. But we don't care, because we're like that. So I've got it to say banana. Let's go back. Bring the original functionality in. So I think what I want to do is just comment this out a little bit. So italicize if stack has a custom name, get positioning information, get opacity information, and then we're going to say render the tooltip if the opacity is over 0. So now that I have this commented out, as well as this, I don't know if we can just do that up here. I don't know why it's... Because the things we're going to do impact the position of the actual stack name, I'm thinking right here is a good spot to get enchantments from the item. So we're going to say if current stack, and I honestly have no idea what the methods are, I'm just randomly guessing, and it looks like I was right there. So it has enchantments, and that calls, okay. I'm going to grab, let's see, get enchantments. I think there's an enchantment helper class, and it does have a get enchantments method, so I'm going to call that instead, and that returns a map from enchantment to integer. The integer is probably the level of the enchantment, so I'm going to do enchantments equals enchantment helper dot get enchantments for our current stack. We're going to make an integer called enchantment count equals 0. We're going to set enchantment count to enchantments.size. I'm not going to start in an integer. I'm going to do this equals new hash map. I'm going to set enchantments to this. I probably don't even need to check if it has enchantments. It'll probably just return an empty list, but I also don't trust it. So here what I'm going to do then is, this 59 seems to be probably an offset from the bottom of the hotbar, maybe an offset from the bottom of the screen. So I'm going to turn that into a variable, and I'm going to call it bottom offset equals 59. And then I have no idea how tall a string is when it's rendered. Let's see if it actually tells us. Draw string with shadow, draw with shadow, goes to draw, goes here, goes here, goes here, draw internal. Does it give us a size? Draw layer, X goes here. It's probably one of these, but there doesn't seem to be any obvious answer. So I'm just going to guess 16, because that seems to be a common number in Minecraft. So I'm going to comment this out, get enchantments from stack, and then we're going to add another integer called int enchantment offset. Just to explain what I'm doing really quick, say you have a enchantment tooltip. So it'll be diamond sword, and then say sharpness 5. If there's sharpness 5 under the diamond sword, we're going to have to move the diamond sword tooltip up, because otherwise it's just going to go on top of the hotbar, which we don't want. So I'm going to say the enchantment offset is equal to enchantments.size times 16. And then I'm going to subtract enchantments offset from the scaled height. And I am going to run the game again. Game is now here. As you can see, it just says dirt because we reverted that change. But if we get a sharpness book, a diamond sword, and an anvil, and actually just for testing purposes, I should probably get every enchantment I can think of, just for dramatic effect. Let's get knockback. Let me turn off the music before I get sued for copyright infringement. As you can see, the diamond sword tooltip is now noticeably higher. If we add all these and go back to it, you can see the diamond sword tooltip is like halfway up our screen. So whatever value I used there was probably a little bit too much, but it's working, and that's what we want. So now we're going to go back. I'm going to change this 16 to maybe like a 12. We'll be able to see once we start rendering text ourselves. Let's see. Nah, I'm not going to comment that out. We've got some standard setup functions here. It looks like there's some more positioning stuff. Something about the width of the string, probably for horizontal centering. It's probably a fern flower artifact. We've got the background, so we're gonna trying to think of what to comment this as. Disable GL setup or NGL setup. NGL, that sounds good. Start GL. Positioning information. Render tooltip. So this one here again is some sort of background color. I have no idea what this does. There's probably an edge case where this falls into play. Like if the item name is a certain color, it draws a shadow behind it, or maybe I missed the shadow. I'm not going to touch it. This is what I'm interested in here. And there is a bunch of... So this draw with shadow takes an X and Y. So I can reasonably assume that these parameters are X and Y here. And this is probably... Let's see, so we're adding the width to the X position. And what is X here? Scaled width minus the width of the string divided by 2. So that's directly centered. And then we're subtracting 2 from it. Not really sure what that's doing. I don't know if it matters. So now we're going to draw our enchantments. We're going to say for. Actually, I'm just going to do for each, because IntelliJ will do that for me. Let's see. It'll be enchantment integer. We don't really care about the integer because it's the level of the enchantment. Actually, I guess we do care because we're going to want to let the user know. And of course, we're going to have to replace it for a for loop already. We've got our enchantment and integer. I'll name this one here enchantment level. Actually, level probably works. And then we've got X and Y. I think what I'm going to do here is store, I could store a value, or I could do a for I loop. For I equals 0. We could do enchantments.size, and then is equal to enchantments. Are maps ordered? They're not. So we can't do that. So instead, I'm going to keep an int count equals 0. Say count plus plus. And then enchantments dot get translation key. So we can get the translation key, and I'm going to put it inside a translatable text so that it is readable. That's not valid Java. And then I believe we need to do as formatted string. Or did they change that? To as formatted string. There we go. So we've got the enchantment name being printed. We've got the color. I'll probably change the color later to white. And then I'm going to do X, actually the Y position. So the Y position is going to be wherever our actual name is. So I'm going to do Y plus, because remember before we were subtracting to go upwards. Where was that? Yeah, we're subtracting to go upwards. So to go down, we're going to do Y plus 12 times the count. And I'm actually going to set the count to 1 so that we start at 12 down. And something useful I'm going to do here, because this is a mixin, what I can actually do is if I go to my external libraries here, I'm going to look for the mixin library. I'm going to get the path of that. I'm going to copy it. If I go into my VM options, I can say Java agent equals this. And what I've done here is I've allowed mixin to do hot swapping. So I won't actually have to restart my game unless I make any drastic changes here. Loading back into the game for the third time, what we should see is the enchantment names underneath our item. As you can see, it's working pretty well, actually. I'm surprised. And it seems like the font color is working. I'm not sure why that's white. But I'll take it because that's exactly what I wanted. Assuming I don't want gray. Maybe I do want gray. So, I've got this, which actually looks pretty good. It seems like I could move it a little bit down. So I'm going to change this bottom offset to 50. I should be able to hot reload that. And now you can see it's a little bit closer to the hotbar. Seems like the other primary issue is that the enchantments are not centered. But the other thing I want to do is put the level of the enchantment after it. So let's go back to our drawing area. Draw with shadow, as formatted string, plus, space, level. Now the primary issue with this is that obviously it's not Roman numerals. So we need a way to... Part of me is wondering if there's maybe a translation key for numbers to Roman numerals. I'm going to look at, because I have no idea. I'm going to go into the Minecraft translations folder, and yep. Seems like there is a potency translation key. So I'm going to grab this. I'm going to do new translatable text as formatted string, and the translation key going in is potion.potency dot plus the level, and that should support 0 as well. Actually, I'm not sure if the level is 0 indexed. We'll find out. Sharpness. Yeah, so I'm going to subtract 1 from this. I don't know if I can... Nope, I can't. Level dot int value minus... Oops. Minus 1. Let's see if it'll let me do that. Yep. Okay, gotcha. Didn't know you could actually subtract directly from the box versions of values. So, now we've got sharpness V, knockback 2, unbreaking 3, fire aspect 2 in Roman numeral form. Does this completely break as soon as we get sharpness 7? Absolutely yes. Do we care? Not really. If you really want to care about that, you can add separate translation keys, but there's no vanilla enchantment that goes above, what, 5 for levels? So, not an issue for us. We just need to figure out how to center this, which is kind of going to be a pain. I'm just dragging this off my screen so I can bring it back when we want to reload. I'm going to look for the X value, because that's what we're concerned about. It seems like nothing that we do here is relevant to whatever this is. And I don't know what this is. It's probably going to break when I don't do anything related to it. But oh well. So we're going to grab this X value here and see how it's defined. You can see it's that. So I'm going to... So this right here is just enchantments. It's not the name. So we can do whatever we want to the X value. So we're going to say X is equal to this dot scaled with, and then we need to take this string. So what I'm going to do is all of this. I'm going to put it into a... It will not let me do that. Okay, good to know. String enchantment text is equal to whatever this is. And we're going to say enchantment text. And then we're going to say the string width is actually the enchantment text, not whatever we had before, which was the title of the actual item. So now if we hover back over it, we can see that the tooltips are now centered. Now the only other thing I want to change is the actual color of the text going in. And quite frankly, I don't know how to do that. I think what we can do is, let's see, just draw with shadow taken text. No, it takes in a string. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to grab, I think I can put this into a new literal text. and then I'm going to store it as a literal text, and I'm going to do here as formatted string, here as well as formatted string, and then at the end of the literal text declaration, I'm going to say formatting dot gray. Will it let me do that? No, because let's see if it'll let me do this. Yep. It seems like formatted returns a text object, now saving it as a literal text, so of course that's not going to work. Now if we go back, as you can see, it is a gray that I don't like. I quite frankly have no clue if that's a different color. What else can I do? You know what? After several seconds of deliberation, I've decided that we're going to do absolutely nothing about it because honestly, it looks fine if you're in the right spot. And if you're on the latest snapshot, I think there's support for a special colored font. You can do whatever color you want. I might make it a config option or something. Let's see how it looks with white again. I was under the impression there was a light gray font, but evidently there's not. So I'm just going to keep that at gray. That looks pretty good. Last thing I want to check is that I didn't like completely obliterate tooltip rendering for other things. It looks like I did. And that's because I changed this value without considering what it would do to other things. So I want to look back at the method previously. That was 59. So I'm going to do a little cheat. I'm going to say if enchantments.size, actually, let me just set that to 59 and see how it looks. That's not bad. It's a little bit high, but that's probably accurate with the Bedrock version. Pickaxe is now fixed. Let's also go efficiency. And as you can see, efficiency 5 now displays underneath the diamond pickaxe name. Of course, this is not going to work for potions because we just didn't do anything for that. If you wanted to do this for potions, it would be pretty easy. You would just have to, right here where we get enchantments, you could check, hey, is this a potion item? And then do the exact same thing for potions. I don't think this is a good solution to the problem. And the only reason I do it is because messing around with injects is just going to be a pain, and I'd much rather have it crash instead of, you know, maybe work with other mods, but actually mess up. The best solution to this would probably be having an event that allows you to add, like, custom tooltip lines. So then mods could just be like, hey, I want to add sharpness 5 to the line, and that's that. No mixins, no overwrites, no conflicts. That's about all for today. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something new, and send me your requests for my next tutorial. Until then, see you later.